Action for Housing has responded to a statement by Fabian Picardo on direct democracy on GBC television. Mr. Picardo answered a question from a viewer who said they'd been on the housing waiting list for 11 years, renting in Spain because they can't afford high prices on the rock.
I don't think that there are many cases, if any, of people who have been on the housing waiting list for 11 years. If there are, they are few and far between, and what I've been able to establish in answers to questions in Parliament is that people who are in those circumstances, in other words, if you've been on the housing waiting list for 11 years, and indeed for less years than that, you have been offered a house and you have rejected it. If that's not the case in Chiron's case, I'd be very grateful if he were to get in touch with me, because the data that I have from the Housing Department does not suggest that there are any such cases.
Action for Housing says it's carried out its own study into the number of housing applicants who've been waiting for years.
Out of the 160 ones that we have, we've been able to identify 20 applicants who have been between 8 and 13 years on the waiting list. And this is the breakdown. 2 applicants have been on the waiting list for 8 years, 5 for 9, 5 for 10, 5 for 12, and 3 for 13. So, contrary to what the Chief Minister has said, there are a number of applicants who have been on the waiting list between 8 and 13 years. And taking into account that we only have some 160 applicants on our list, we wonder how many more there are, given that we don't have the entire housing waiting list. So if you multiply this by another 400, then you can sort of, work out how many more people have been on the waiting list for a number of years.
Action for Housing says the Chief Minister made no mention of new rental properties, only the affordable homes which don't meet the needs of those who can't afford mortgages. It says it shared its letter to Mr. Picardo so the community can understand what the housing situation is really like.